Welcome to the last March edition of the PFF Forecast. It is Wednesday, March 29th. We have a great show today. We're going to do more NFL win totals. We've got Seth and Arjun joining us today, who are going to, among other things, talk about win totals they like. It's going to be a great podcast. Let's rock. All right, Seth, we had a spirited conversation about the film watching of your first dates. I'm told that we're going to now dive into great detail on the grading of said first dates. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we already know that there's a lot of negatives, a lot of -2s, even like certainly a lot of -1.5s, but 2s.
What's a -2 on a first date?
Drooling, like not like, like chewing. I would say like, yeah, drooling. Yeah, that's a -2. You didn't have the manual? You didn't get the manual when you got hired?
Right. hit up Ben for the manual.
For anyone that's new, by the way, welcome to this show about betting on sports and football. That's what we generally talk about. But the PFF grading scale, you see it as a 0 to 100 grade, but when it's actually recorded by our analysts, it goes from -2 is the worst grade a player can receive on any given play. A +2 is the best, and it goes in increments of 0.5. A -2, for people that are curious, it's like you watch the worst plays in the history of football, like Brett Favre's horrendous interception, most of Daniel Jones's throws.
The butt fumble should hopefully be a
butt fumble. Yeah, these like egregiously bad plays. Okay. Drooling wasn't even something that I had in my mind. It's something that could happen on a first date.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that's such a rare occurrence.
You've drooled on a first date?
No. I'm not saying I've ever drooled on a first date.
Brad, what's a -2 in your mind?
I think drooling is a -5, being honest.
Yeah.
A -2 would be like just like having bad breath or something like that. Like you just come in right off the bat and it's just like it's already a tough start. You know what I mean? It's like for me, it's more foundational than it is like one particular action on the date itself.
Okay. So I think bad breath is a good one, but that is a foundational piece. Like what's one single thing you could do that's a -2?
Ordering for your date.
Oh,
that is the most disgusting thing you can do is order for someone else, especially if you like don't know them very well. Like
first date. Yeah. That's
first date. Yeah, absolutely.
Another one would be like blowing the who's paying for the bill was one that came to mind, where you just like, well, I don't know. Like, would you mind? Like,
would you mind?
Would you mind? Like,
oh yeah. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. Just
the old alligator arms that they call it in my my neck of the woods. I guess another one too. Now they're like are all in restaurants, which I guess makes sense with first dates. Like if you're a dick to service people, I just don't like you right off bat. So that's a -2 for sure.
That's a very, very good one. So ordering for your date, but also just eating off your date's plate.
Oh yeah. I would even this is a personal thing.
Just without asking, just unprompted. Oh, you got French fries? Yeah, here we go.
I decided at one point in my mid-20s after doing this one time that I was never going to do it again. And I decided on first dates, I would never offer food. Like, oh, that looks really good. And I say, oh, do you want to try it? No, I don't do that until day 2. I feel like it's too intimate for first date is offering. And I know it's like it's in my nature. I think it's in all of our natures to want to share food if it's good. But I'm like, I got to wait till the second date. For some reason, I think it's weird if you do it on a first date.
I think it's so fair because then it's like, do you give a share plate? Do you hand over your fork? Like there's so many factors at play there.
Yeah, here comes the airplane.
Yeah, you do a little choo-choo train on the first date. That's a +1.5. I'm not gonna lie. I would dig that.
That actually would be a looks like a turnover worthy play, and then all of a sudden you save it.
Yep.
It's like it's like what Patrick Mahomes does in the pocket sometimes. I said, like, here's one more on this is if your date orders something and you're like, oh, you eat whatever. It's like, oh, that's a heavy carbs on that meal, huh?
Oh,
We're
you're
gonna
gonna get the fries instead of the veggies?
Yeah,
That's
I
I say I wouldn't do that.
That's the worst thing that you can do on a first date. Okay. Let's transition gracefully into, let's start with some win totals. We also have a pet peeve and a soft spot from or one of them. We're going to be surprised with Seth. But we talked about win totals last week, so no one wants to, or on Sunday. You can go listen to that episode, by the way, and check it out. No one wants to hear Brad or I talk about it. So we're going to go, Seth, you have 5 win totals. We're going to count them down. Let's start with number 5.
All right, so we'll start Miami under 9.5.
Ooh.
Reasoning being, I don't believe in Tua yet. So can you get that same great season out of him 2 years in a row? You know, it's the same thing we say about Jimmy G, about Sean McVay, about Jared Goff, about those type of quarterbacks. Like, can you go back to back and have a great season? Now, obviously, the talent is there in terms of the supporting cast. Mike McDaniel seems like he really knows what he's doing as a coordinator, play caller. But I think that's where I'm like, okay, well, if the division gets better with Aaron Rodgers getting in there, are you still the number 2 team in the division? And then under 9.5 makes a lot of sense to me. So that's number 1.
Very nice. By the way, on DraftKings right now, over 9.5 plus 100, under 9.5 is minus 120. It seems like they are shading in your direction. Brad, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we've kind of gone back and forth. I think the entire AFC East, like, in a way, you could talk yourself into a lot of different sides based on health, based on how the other teams perform. Like, it's a bit of a scary one. I don't mind fading it, or fading the Dolphins, I should say, because I mean, like, if Tua either doesn't repeat itself or his injuries do repeat themselves, I mean, that's scary by itself.
Yeah, it's I think the Tua thing is just super interesting. He's a concussion away from like not playing football again. So we've talked about the sponge, but that's a really scary place to be. And if you don't, your point's at, if you don't have decent quarterback play in that division, like, it doesn't matter what else you have. Okay, number 4.
Rams under 7.5, and that is just like, we just have no idea what Matt Stafford is going to look like going forward. It could be really, really bad. It should just, like, the injury just could not heal itself. You know, he's in his 30s. I got mad problems. I'm in my 30s that don't heal themselves. So I get it. So I would say, and then the roster just is not good at all. It wasn't good last year. It's not going to be good this year. It's going to be even worse this year. So, like, to me, this could be an ugly team if he doesn't, if the elbow just doesn't heal like the way he would want it to.
Yeah, we highlighted this one. I think we can just move right along. We strongly agree with you on that position. Their trenches are terrible. They're trying to get rid of more players at the same time right now too. So yeah, I think we're all in lockstep on that one.
It's just going to be interesting what that offense looks like. They have their first round pick next year.
Yep.
Okay, so the Caleb Williams tank is on. Okay, number 3.
All right, my next 3 are overs. We're going Cowboys over 9.5.
Okay.
Best team in the NFC, I think, maybe.
Ooh.
Potentially. Somewhere there. I best quarterback in the NFC. I'm not afraid to say that. So that's really got to be over 9.5. And the division is like, obviously you have the Eagles there, but other than that, like, I think you're probably all right there. So to me, it's like pretty obvious that they're going to be a really good team and probably get into double-digit wins.
It's interesting. Another good way to earn a negative grade in the first date is to start off with, so what do you think about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys this year?
What do you think about Dak Prescott's tattoo with the bullwinkle on it?
Don't you think his interceptions were overblown? I totally agree with you. Yeah. I will say two things. Again, we're on lockstep. Judah actually was talking about, and the alternate line when that drops. Like, if you're really bullish on them and betting 10.5 or like really going crazy. Second point, just because you mentioned the conference winner, they are plus 650 to win the NFC if you want to, bet it in that way.
That might be the direction that I would go with that. We talked about also an alternate under for the Niners. and the Rams. So the Niners are, the best team according to Vegas in the NFC right now, I think, right? Or maybe they have the same odds as the Eagles. They don't have a quarterback. Kyle Shanahan is quoted as saying, in regards to Lamar Jackson, we have 3 quarterbacks we feel really good about. That was the fact that he got that out with a straight face is unbelievable to me. So, by the way, I think it surprises me that people aren't talking about the Niners and Lamar. I know there's a lot of interesting things, that have to go on for that, but they do not have a quarterback that they should feel great about right now. Okay, number 2.
Saints over 9.5, and this is
you homer.
Just this division is so bad. They're going to be favored for 6 games in the division. And I think that when we talk about the Saints and what they're doing, I think we talk about them in the way that they're not, even with all these moves and the restructures and Derek Carr and all that stuff, they're not a Super Bowl contender, but they certainly should be winning this division and getting into double-digit wins because of the division and because of the rest of the NFC. So that's why I'm a little more bullish on them in that sense, rather than it being I went on a rant a couple of weeks ago about them being Super Bowl contenders, but division winners and probably over 9.5. 9.5 is pretty high. I would rather it at 8.5, but I think they're going to win the division, and then that probably gets them to double digits somehow.
I'll say this. So from the trust tree, I actually said maybe they're alternate under, but I will say even after saying that, I think you could talk yourself in both directions, where you also could do alternate over of if Michael Thomas stays healthy, if Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Tyrann Mathieu all stay healthy somehow, which they seem to do. You could argue an alt in either direction. So I get it.
Yeah, it's interesting because they had, I would say, not great injury luck last year. Right. And had, as I pointed out, Seth, and I'm curious your take here, they basically just got a toupee for Andy Dalton. He now has dark hair, right? What did they really change here?
They're just paying a lot more money.
There you go.
That toupee is costing a lot of money.
Yeah, it's interesting. Whenever you can pay, this is my thing about free agency. Whenever you can pay 3x for something, you've got to do it. Absolutely, it's the Patriot way. Number 1, Seth.
All right, this is maybe a little out of nowhere. I'm not really sure. Cardinals over 5.5.
Whoa!
And I just think okay, if you can get 2 wins without Kyler Murray, and this roster stinks. I get it. This is bad roster. But if you can get 2 wins with Kyler Murray, you're still an NFL team, I believe. 2 wins without Kyler Murray. Murray comes back, and I think you can get 4 wins with Kyler Murray, but it is a tough one. I just wanted to go out on a limb a little bit here because I still like Kyler Murray. I'm curious to see what he looks like, not in the air raid, right? We've only seen him in this very specific system, and I'm very interested to see what it's going to look like in a more, I guess, traditional NFL offense.
I guess, yeah. I mean, basically, whatever you think Kyler Murray's absence is going to be, is he going to miss 8 weeks, 6 weeks? That kind of is the bet here. If it's on the shorter side, no pun intended, with Kyler Murray and he misses a month, then you probably do have value there. I'm afraid of this one because they've been saying some things, positive things, but I'm skewing towards maybe they kind of not tank, none of those words, but they let him come back very slowly because they're not good this year. But yeah, if that's not the case, then 3rd overall pick, maybe you trade down or you take a Will Anderson type player. You can talk yourself into it.
The interesting thing with Murray is, so last year, 67 PFF grade, didn't play obviously the whole year, but his trajectory leading into last year was really compelling. He had improved in a lot of different areas. He was throwing over the middle of the field a hell of a lot better until he got injured in 2021. I mean, he was at some point, I think he was the MVP frontrunner, but 82.8 PFF grade in 2020, 84 PFF grade in 2021. And as I mentioned, in 2021, he started off the season really up through week 7, I guess it was just dominating. So the other thing that I'll say about the Cardinals, and I like this bet, Seth, because I didn't think of it. But one of the reasons that I like it is Kyler Murray, what do we know about Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray loves Kyler Murray. That's what we know about Kyler Murray. And no one wants to prove Kyler Murray right more than Kyler Murray. So look, if you're going to motivate someone and look for someone that cares about the way others think of them, and it's clear that he's hearing a lot of things, and I don't think he's going to want to prove them right off the field. I think he's going to prove them right on the field. That seems to be his kind of MO. So I can get on board with that.
Yeah, like I said, going out a little bit on a limb, but like you said, like Kyler Murray has played at an MVP type level in his past. Now, obviously, ACL injury, you never know what you're going to get. And like Brad said, if he's out 8 games, then obviously the 5.5 looks a little different. But if he's out 4 games, 5 games, I think you can live in that world where they get over 5.5.
Okay, it is time for the pet peeve or the soft spot with Seth Galina, a recurring segment that our listeners love. Seth.
All right, we're going soft spot this week. Something that I've been super fascinated by in the world of soccer. And this ties into all sports, all scheme-related stuff. Super fascinating. But there is a team in the English Premier League, Brighton Hove Albion, coached by someone named Roberto De Zerbi. And the way they play soccer is the most unique thing I've ever seen in my life. They are doing so. I think at most transitional sports, and when I say transitional sports, I mean soccer, hockey, and basketball, right? These up and down, like you play offense and defense. There's no specialized positions, stuff like that. We had like the spread era for all these sports happen at some point. We see it in basketball with, all the 3-point shooting. In soccer, we kind of saw it to a certain degree with the Barcelona teams of like the Pep Guardiola Barcelona teams, spreading teams out, making, going sideline to sideline. Hockey, we stopped seeing the dump and chase. So we saw more, zone entries and stuff like that. That's kind of spread, I would say. Obviously in football too, we saw the spread era happen, right? And what Brighton is doing under De Zerbi, and he's done this before with Shakhtar and Sassuolo in Serie A, is they slow it down completely. They play with the ball in the middle, and they all come to the middle of the field. And what that does is they literally will, the center back who's bringing the ball out will literally get to about, let's say, halfway between his own goal line and the midline and just stop. If no defender comes at him, he literally, you can go find clips of this online. He stops and he does not move an inch with the ball. He's like, you better come to me or we're not playing, right? And what ends up happening is it forces teams to press them, and they are incredibly good at these very short range, intricate passing because they're all condensed in the middle of the field. And I was thinking about this, and really what it does is it creates, even though you have the ball, it creates a transitional moment down the field on a counterattack, even though you're not countering. Because what it does is it forces the defense to the middle of the field. And what they'll do is they'll play these passes really quickly, and eventually they're looking for a direct ball to the wings or down through the middle deeper. And now you're saying, okay, yes, we have the ball, but through these mechanisms, we've created this transitional moment where we're one-on-one on a wing. We're one-on-one down the center. And I mean, they're like, I think they're 5th or 6th place in the EPL this year. And, a small club, Brighton Hove Albion, incredible way to watch football and talk and look at it. Like, I highly recommend anyone, you go on YouTube, find some clips of them just like not passing the ball. They just stand there. Then they get attacked, and then they're so good. Obviously you need the technical ability to be able to pass in short areas and receive the ball in short areas and stuff like that. But like I said, what it does is like they're creating their own counterattattack while having the ball, it's fascinating.
It's like throwing out a bunch of linemen, sounds like, kind of.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. What's the
but like
NFL,
imagine playing bunch and you had to kick the ball to the other guy near you.
Right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That was beautiful. I was
an analogy to like running the football. There's got to be something there where you just run.
There's
the ball
almost
or establish a.
It's almost like a pick and roll type of thing. Spread to run, I think, is the way I would think about it. So it's like, we why spreading to run the ball works, because you still have 5 offensive linemen in the running back and like 6 people in the box, 5 people in the box, but like you can create these intricate blocking schemes to get guys free, and you don't have You just have less guys in the box. So kind of like that, kind of like a pick and roll, something like that. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it's completely different than how soccer had been played, like I said, kind of starting with the Pep Guardiola Barcelona team, spreading teams out sideline to sideline.
Do you think there's a benefit of, because obviously, like you said, Brighton is not like a super talented school. Like, is that the benefit too? Is like you can have lesser athletes and kind of.
This is why it doesn't make any sense to me, because you need all these incredibly technical players
Okay.
in these short areas. Now they do have really good wingers, like really good wingers, or wingers that having really good seasons in this system, like Matoma and Solly March having really good seasons. So like maybe you need those two wingers to when you get into the one-on-ones. But that's why it's so fascinating, because like you have a guy like Lewis Dunk who's like this like tall English center back. I mean, his name is Lewis Dunk. And he's like playing these 1-2s in his own end. And yeah, they turn the ball over once in a while. Yeah, but that's why it doesn't make sense to me, because you think you would need super technical players, and they do have good players. Like they play in the EPL, right? They have good players. Super talented player. But it's fascinating. Again, I highly recommend watching them.
Whether it be scheme analysis for sports other than football, or how to lose a first date. Seth Galina is your guy. You can follow him at PFF_Seth. You can get his dating analysis with a PFF Plus subscription for promo with 20% off promo code forecast. We need to create one for Seth specifically. But Seth, we always appreciate it. Thanks for staying a little bit longer. Enjoy going to bed, hopefully at a really early and reasonable hour
right now.
Tonight.
I'm going to bed right now. See you guys.
Sweet dreams.
Thanks, Seth. All right, Arjun is back. He's been in the lab preparing. You were on DraftKings Sportsbook for what appears to be way too many hours today. Brad and I, as close friends of yours, received alerts from DraftKings as well, letting us know that you'd been on your logged in your DraftKings account for a while. So you survived, thank God.
Yeah, for reference, had a 3-hour session going today, but it's for the people, it's for the press. I was sending a lot of messages in the Discord today, alerting people like, hey, there's a discrepancy here, there's a bad line here, like this is what some of the trends have been happening. Like you should, this is a good line to go bet. So I've been doing my work for the people, doing my research, and I will say it wasn't one of my more productive days from an academic standpoint, but it's all right. We all have one of those days, and I think this was a good day to be on DraftKings.
You got one of those Netflix, like, are you still watching? Like, you got one of those things like on your DraftKings page. But no, to a serious point, Arjun is blessing the people, and a lot of the stuff he puts in there, I'm probably too lazy to go into the Discord, so I might shoot him a message, and he like puts it in there. He does a ton of research himself. There's been a lot of CLV put in that chat lately from Arjun. So get in that Discord if you want to. Look, not every bet's going to cash, but I mean, some of the value we've gotten already this offseason is pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's been, just the Panthers to pick number one alone has made people thousands of dollars. Go get involved in the Printing Press Discord. The link is in the description. If that's not working for some reason or you can't find it, hit us up on Twitter and we will make sure that you get it. It's what's cool about that. We talk obviously a ton about football and draft props and now win totals and everything, but we're betting on Formula One and people are betting everything in there. So a lot of really good content to go check out at the Printing Press Discord. We had a question that Seth Galina brought to our attention or concocted in some way, shape, or form, Arjun. And I'm curious if you have a take here. Seth goes on a lot of first dates. You're in college, so you probably have a different perspective on this. What is a -2 grade? Like, what's something you can do on a date, first date, that earns you a -2 PFF grade?
So one, like specifically for men, I think is like splitting the bill. Like at least the way I was brought up, like, you guys got to take care of the first date, especially if they're the ones initiating. Like I was, that's how my mom raised me. So that's going to be, my answer there. I hope people don't think like of me in a weird way after this second answer, but anyone lets one rip like in the middle, like in the middle of dinner, like that would probably be not even -2. I'd be like -3. Honestly, that's a really bad way to start it off.
So I'll take it. Sometimes like an accident might happen, but the way you make it a -2 is you say it wasn't you. You're like, oh, no, that wasn't me. I don't know who that was. Oh my God, that smells terrible. Can you believe that? Who is this? This guy? Like, just that's how you make that a -2. Like, you just gotta be like, look, shit.
You can be a farter or a liar. You can't be a farter and a liar.
And a liar. Yeah. Absolutely torch. And nowadays, Arjun, you actually might get a -2 grade from some people for assuming that you're going to pay the bill. Just be careful. Just put it out there. But I agree with that in general. If you ask someone out on a first date, and you don't pay, I think that goes like, yeah, that goes without saying. Okay, let's dive into some win totals here. We have a little Chiefsaholic content at the end of this that's going to be exciting. We're pitching a documentary to Netflix. But let's get back on track with some win totals. Arjun, we talked about it, as everyone knows, here with Judah on Sunday. Want to get your kind of perspective on how you treat win totals. How much are you allocating of your bankroll to it? Are you betting a lot? Are you betting alts? Are you betting them, once when they're released? Or are you betting them gradually? How do you treat win totals?
Yeah, so at least for me, before win totals were even released, like I think late February, I had like a paper. I don't have it with me right now, but I kind of just like predicted what I thought win totals should be, just like without the odds, and kind of I had that ready, and then just be like teams I'm bearish and bullish on. So I have like those kind of like things ready. When win totals came out on DraftKings, and as they came out, I kind of just compared the lines to what I thought it should be, and teams I thought I would be fading at the right price and would be backing at the right price. And so that's kind of like my process on top of, doing my team analysis, looking at their schedule. I know strength of schedule, it changes throughout the year, and end of season strength of schedule is better to look at than preseason. But I think like if you know your stuff and your research, like you can kind of predict like this will be a cakewalk schedule for some teams. And I think that's definitely useful than just like leaving it out of your analysis completely. And then, I'm not betting. I haven't bet any win totals yet. I've kind of like given my leans and just like things I want to consider. I also want to see what like DraftKings or Caesars or BetMGM open them up at. Like, I don't want to just like, use DraftKings lines, because I might get a better line when FanDuel or some of these other books release it. So definitely waiting on some of them, and also waiting on some of the alt win totals, where that is more profitable, I think, than betting some of these -130, -140 lines. And that's something that I think Judah talked about not only in his last episode, but last summer, where you want to be looking for those tail outcomes, where if you're really bullish or bearish on a team, I'd rather get them at like +190 or +200 to go a step further than what their regular win total is.
Yeah, it's a good point. The strength of schedule gets thrown around a lot. It's like one of the things that I feel like people tweet about incessantly. And to your point, is that it's similar actually to betting just in general on trends, I find, where it's very strong, like heuristically for people in their minds, where like they hear it and they can't help but feel like it matters. And I think intrinsically you hear strength of schedule and you go, oh, that must matter. And like people don't think about whether that's actually predictive or not. Just think about the fact that like, oh, this makes sense to me as being something that's impactful in the game. Okay, let's so you have some that you've circled that you like. Why don't we go through them and discuss where your head's at, see if it's similar to where Brad and I were.
Yeah, so my favorite one, I know I talked about not laying too much juice, but my favorite one is Cardinals under 5.5. Like Kyler Murray's probably not going to be playing for most, if not all of the year. They're going to trade away DeAndre Hopkins most likely. They lose J.J. Watt in free agency. They lose Byron Murphy, or they lose J.J. Watt to retirement. They lose Byron Murphy in free agency. New head coach, didn't really add a ton over the offseason. New GM. They might be trading out of 3, so the type of impact player they add at the top of the draft is probably not going to be as high as like adding like a Will Anderson. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like I just don't really see a lot of ways where the Cardinals get to 6 wins. I don't necessarily think the roster is that great, and I think they're in a rebuilding stage right now. And the head coach and GM know it. So I don't really like their prospects heading into the season. And I think like under 5.5 wins is definitely like one of my favorite bets. Heading into like April.
So funny because Seth's last bet that he liked, and he goes, I don't know if this is crazy or not, but he liked Cardinals over 5.5. And I think it speaks to the reason for taking an alt, right? Like if you have one way, or it could be really, really bad for them, as you just kind of pointed out. We talked about that a little bit as well, Brad, on Sunday with Judah. But having now heard two perspectives, you had to place a bet on one side. Where would you go?
No, I would lean the under. I think they're the worst roster in the NFL. And I think, like, for me, if I'm them, which shouldn't, I guess, weigh a lot, but why play Kyle? I wouldn't even play Kyler at all this year. I mean, I guess I would like get his feet under him in the last month of the season, so he, it's not like a rust situation, and that he has no NFL speed for that long of time. But like, I would sit him for 12 weeks and have no problems about it at all. They're going to be awful. Why would you rush him back?
It's interesting because so let me ask you this, Brad. Let's say they don't play him for most of the season and they get the first overall pick. You're taking Caleb Williams, right?
Yeah, probably. I don't know how you're going to trade Kyler Murray, but it's going to be interesting. It's going.
What's his dad?
First of all, Kyler Murray is he came in behind Josh Rosen after he was the 10th overall pick, so that would be a weird twist of fate. It's that's a good point. That like that could very well be a decision, because I think they are going to be picking top 5 next year.
That would be phenomenal. So what would his contract, like what would they be paying him to not play?
For this year or for like going forward?
Yeah, going forward.
Let me pull it up really quick. But yeah, so the thing is, you just extended him, so you are, like, from a cash flow standpoint, you're paying a ton for not a lot. But right. Okay, so let's see here. If you moved on after next season, you'd okay, now you'd have $81 million in dead cap. If you trade him, obviously it's different. You're not going to cut him. Yeah. If you trade him, it's $46 million. So still an NFL record, but it's palatable, I suppose.
What would people trade for Kyler Murray right now?
That's the thing. You're inheriting, let's see, $37 million fully guaranteed the first year he's there. It is obviously a thick price there. And then 2025 is going to become mostly guaranteed as well. It's a good question. I really don't know. I think he's interesting to where would his pool be smaller in the same way we kind of talk about Lamar Jackson, where like, I think he's more of a traditional quarterback, but I don't know. Are there teams that don't like him because of his size, because of certain stylistic things? Is there a smaller market? Yeah. His COD abilities, his KD spread on Modern Warfare 2, like all these factors in play.
It's very big. And although if you rest this year, you should get very good at Call of Duty. All right, Arjun, next one.
Yeah, it's another under. I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts under 6.5. I really like this one because it's plus 115. Like, you're getting plus odds. And, to me, like, I'm not the biggest fan of the Colts roster right now either. Like, they kind of lost some guys in free agency and didn't really do much to replace them. You lose Stephon Gilmore, who's your alpha cornerback 1 to free agency. You lose Paris Campbell. You lose Bobby Okereke. And they didn't really do much to, replace any of them. They signed Samson Ebingham, who's their biggest, impactful move in free agency. He's okay, but like him and Yannick Ngakoue are pretty much like, I think, the same guys, like pretty good pass rushers, maybe not as great run defenders. And then they give Matt Gay a 4-year, $22.5 million deal, which is their second biggest deal of free agency. And this is a team who ended up picking 4th overall this year. They didn't improve the roster really at all in free agency. And whatever quarterback they take, it's probably going to be QB4. And if they trade up to 3 and take Anthony Richardson, he, in my opinion, is probably going to have the worst rookie year if he's forced to play all 17 games out of the 4 quarterbacks. So you're not going to have a great rookie quarterback to play with. You have a roster which ended up winning 4 games last year, something like that. You didn't improve it that much. You made a coaching change, but we don't really know how Steichen is going to be as a head coach. And so I'm not the biggest, I just don't really see a path for them to be super competitive this year. I guess the one thing is their division's not that good. The Texans are 10-1 to win the division, and Titans are plus 350. But Titans haven't lost to the Colts in like 4 years or something. And Texans got better over the offseason, and they got better at head coach. They got better, as a roster, and they're probably going to have a more impactful rookie quarterback than the Colts are. So I really like the Colts under 6.5, and the fact that we're getting it at plus money, I think that will trend to going closer to even money by the summer.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you've called out two unders on two of the lower win totals, right? So 5.5 is the lowest, I want to say, right? And then 6.5, there's a few teams. I think about the Texans and the Cardinals at 5.5, and then there's a few at 6.5. The interesting thing with the Colts is I don't know why. I guess everyone keeps kind of putting Anthony Richardson on that team, and I do tend to agree with you. As weird as it sounds, like I feel like if he went to most teams, I would actually think he might have like the highest floor because like he can run the ball. There's something weird about the Colts where I just I don't have a lot of faith in their roster, so I can definitely get behind that.
I don't necessarily think it's like about the Colts specifically. I just like Richardson is not like he's the most inaccurate quarterback in this draft by far. I put it out on Twitter today, but he had the ninth lowest percentage of throws charted as accurate by PFF in 2022 in among all P5 quarterbacks, and he had the eighth highest uncatchable inaccurate throws among all P5 quarterbacks in 2022. You're not just going to fix accuracy in one summer or throughout the season. And like, while I think, people have kind of praised his processing and mental game side of the game, which, I'm not a quarterback guru, so I'm not going to comment on that. At least the raw accuracy numbers, even when you filter it down by short and intermediate throws, isn't good. And while his rushing floor, like rushing ability, gives him a somewhat high floor, like Justin Fields was still like, barely like a top 20 efficient quarterback in his second year. In his first year, even though he was a great runner, he was still pretty inaccurate. And like you're getting like what, top 25 production? Like, is that what people consider to be a high floor? Like, I just like, that's where the rushing ability, it doesn't like add up to like being like a good quarterback because you're inaccurate. Like, I think you need to have both sides of that. And I think his inaccuracy will cause some issues, especially for the Colts, where I feel like they'll be playing from behind a lot of the time, and he's not going to get an opportunity to run the ball.
They also just don't have a good receiving core, really. Michael Pittman's a good player. Alec Pierce showed some flashes last year, the second rounder at Cincinnati, but you lose Paris Campbell. You don't really have much at tight end. Jelani Woods, he's coming along a little bit, but I agree. Like his ceiling is the highest, not in 2023, in 2027, in theory. Yeah. That's a bit far out, but yeah.
That's
2025. His ceiling in 2025 is the highest, is what I meant to say.
The year after that Caleb Williams that Kyler Murray gets traded. Would you feel better about this if they took a quarterback or if they didn't take a quarterback, Arjun?
I think if they did take a quarterback, honestly, I'd feel better about this. But I could see Steichen going with like the Anthony Lynn route, who was his former head coach in San Diego / LA, and starting Gardner Minshew for a couple of games. And, Minshew mania is like, he's good enough, friend of the pod, obviously, he's good enough to win a couple of games here and there. So I'd hope that they draft a quarterback and start him right away. But I could see Steichen going with the, Anthony Lynn route.
Yeah, Gardner's getting these 7 wins.
That's
I remember my favorite Gardner Minshew moment, friend of the podcast, was his week 1, I want to say, cover.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest. It was just, I think they actually played the Colts, right? Or it was Colts or Titans, I can't remember. But it was just a lock, stone cold lock. Gardner Minshew was just guaranteed to get your team above average. Okay, next one.
Next one, it's going to be an over. I'm not as strong as the overs as I am with the unders, but I do kind of like the Seahawks over 8.5 -105. Like, a lot of continuity on both sides of the ball. Their division win totals have been kind of bet up from +475, I think, which is when we gave it out. Now it's like +285. So don't necessarily see a ton of value there. But yeah, I mean, Seahawks just, Geno staying, Tyler Lockett, DK are all there. You have 2 picks inside the top 20. So you're going to be able to add potentially 2 impactful players on cheap deals. And like, cornerback room got better throughout the year. And I think overall they kept the roster intact, and like the Rams got worse. The Cardinals got worse. Like, their division overall as a whole pretty much got worse. And I think the NFC losing Brady and losing Rodgers, like, there's going to be wins lost because the NFC is just weaker. And I think the Seahawks could take advantage of that as a team. And, I'm kind of betting that Geno will be able to continue at least like above average play, but we did see it tail off a little bit towards the end. Part of that kind of coincides with Lockett's injury, but I just love the continuity on both sides of the ball for them. And I think, kind of investing in Geno and giving him that confidence will definitely help the offense at least like be productive, especially when Kenneth Walker is still on the team.
Yeah,
I love that one. Yeah, I'm sitting here just smiling. Yeah, it's probably my favorite one right now. And I think the key is what you mentioned is I think it was plus 550 when we gave it out, not even plus 475. And now it's they're way down there. So there's just so many reasons to like it. I'm happy to hear you agree.
The only thing is, you look at his data from last year. He had 3 games by the way, you can get this on pff.com or PFF app, get PFF Plus subscription. 91 or higher PFF grade in 3 games in the first 8 weeks. I mean, he was lighting the world on fire. Those games do not happen that frequently. A 90 plus PFF game grade is very rare. From week 9 onward, he had only 2 games with a PFF grade above 70. And those were 72.5 and 73.4. So the play did tail off rather considerably. That's my concern, right? Is like, did we see who's a good example of this? Maybe an extreme case would be like that Billy Volek run or Matt Flynn, right? It's like they got this like glimmer of wonderful play, and then it just kind of all fades away. Does that worry you at all, Arjun?
A little bit. And George, you kind of missed a gimme where Geno was basically Russ, where Russ is always an MVP the first 8 weeks of the season. Yeah. And by the end, he always tails off. So similar to Geno, but like I said, I think part of that coincides with Lockett getting hurt. Other maybe could just be Geno's never started a full season before. And like, it's not like a huge transition, but like, it's obviously like he hasn't gone through something like that. Teams have more data on Geno where they didn't have data on like what coverages that they should play against him, what if he struggles versus blitzes, if he struggles versus 2 high versus 1 high, all of that. Like teams are just better equipped in the second half of the year to make adjustments to him. And so, I'm not putting like a ton of stock in that. I think I kind of believe in Shane Waldron and the offense they run. And like I said, just having 2 quality tackles, 2 quality receivers, a good running back, a couple of good tight ends. Like they have pieces there to make it work. And Geno just needs to give them at least like average quarterback play, which I think he can do.
Yeah, no, I think the big thing for me too is growth around him. And then, I mean, I am still obviously like, I think his game against San Fran, you just compare it to every other QB performance against San Francisco in the playoffs, or really for the last 15 weeks of the season. And his was the best performance. Then, and the grade point, as we know, obviously the grades do capture like when you're getting the big time throws and +2s and +1.5s and all that. Geno led the NFL in touchdown passes of 20 plus yards last year by 3 touchdown passes. Like he wasn't earning 91s because he was 29 of 30 for 260 yards and just like was dead on accurate. And like, no, he was like taking shots. And then the last piece, they do need to add a receiver though. Lockett was hurt. Metcalf was hurt as well. They kind of have nothing beyond that, solid tight ends. You mentioned Kenneth Walker, but that's the piece for me too, is look, they're not going to repeat last year's draft, but you have 520, I think the second round pick from Denver as well. Like you're going to add something of value in the first 2 days of the draft.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, they do get a lot better. I think, the worry for me would be percentage of big time throws and percentage of turnover worthy plays were equal in the last 9 weeks. And for the first 8 weeks, we saw those big time throws, really shine. And we know those are less stable than those turnover worthy plays. So, I mean, he had a turnover worthy play in every single game down the stretch, more with multiple than with one or with one. So that's my only reservation. I think you make a good point, Arjun, which is like, we did see a lot of this from Russ in his time in Seattle. The Tyler Lockett injury is a good call out. But that's something that happens, right? If you're going to be that fragile to, and I guess DK got injured a little bit too. So that's something to keep in mind. But depth at the receiver position is certainly something that, that they'll need this year in order to kind of sustain that. Our Seahawks. Any others, Arjun?
No, that's all I have for now. Kind of maybe we could wait until the alts come out and see if there's any juicy lines there. But as of right now, I think we're good. And
any draft props? I have not had the pleasure of sifting through the Discord yet today. So
good.
Can you bless me with anything special?
Yeah, so there's been a couple that I like. There's been 2 over-unders that have come out. Will Anderson was one. It opened 3.5 -140 to the over. It's now -270 to the over. So it's interesting. It seems like a lot of people think someone's going to trade up to 3 with Arizona. Christian Gonzalez opened over 6.5. It opened like -150. It got bet down to -120, and 20 minutes later, it's back up to -160. So a lot of movement there, which I think is pretty interesting. Seems like people think Gonzalez is going to go past pick 6. But in terms of bets I've made and I kind of like, so one that I want to talk about is the Falcons, what they're going to do with their first pick. So you can find this under the draft specials tab on DraftKings or on FanDuel. And you can bet Falcons to take a D-line or edge player at +170, which I think is a good bet. Like, they added Caden Ellis in free agency. They re-signed Lorenzo Carter. They have Abidi Kide from last year. But I just like, those aren't guys that wow me. And I think you have to get, like, if you want to draft an edge guy and you want him to be impactful, you have to get him in round 1. And especially in the top 10, the hit rates for top 10 edges are like much higher than everywhere else. And so you think about, Tyree Wilson could fall, Nolan Smith could be there, Van Ness could be there, compared to the second highest favored position on FanDuel for the Falcons is corner. But they have AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward on the roster. I know Casey Hayward is old. He's a Chargers legend, so I love the guy. I know he's getting up there in age. He missed some time with injury, but if he's on the roster by the draft, like, I just don't see the Falcons taking a corner and playing and benching Casey Hayward. He doesn't add special teams value. So, it kind of makes sense that if he's on the roster, him and Terrell are going to be the starters, and they're not going to take a slot corner at 8. So to me, edge or D-line seems like the obvious choice. They're probably going to go edge because they signed Onyemata in free agency. So I really like the Falcons at +170. We gave it out to the Discord at +200, and now it's, +170. So a little bit of cleave there, but I would take, that D-line or edge down to like +130, +125.
One more data point favor too. I think receivers fairly high on there. A, I don't think 8 is going to be a receiver. It's a little bit early. And B, they used 8 on a receiver last year and 4 on a pass catcher the before that in Kyle Pitts. So I just don't see that happening for the 3rd year in a row, especially when they want to run the ball 70% of the time anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, keep picking these guys high so that they can pass block or run block. Really important. I like that one quite a bit. I'm trying to think about the players that it feels like, those guys are going to drop by virtue of the teams jumping up to draft the quarterbacks. If you have 4 quarterbacks go in the top 5, who are the other players that are even like capable of going in that zone, right? I mean, I think it's the 3 defenders that you just mentioned. Someone else is going to have to go top 8, right? I wonder, like, is it a Christian Gonzalez? Like, I do think corner is I would see receiver falling more than corner, I think would be my take for sure. I don't think that's what the books certainly think as well.
Arjun, touch on, there's probably no value left, but our conversation about Christian Gonzalez earlier.
Yeah. Also, this is one we blessed the Discord with, but Christian Gonzalez just a couple of days ago was like 50-1 to be the first defender taken on a majority of books. On DraftKings, currently he's down to +750. So, in terms of implied probability, it isn't like a huge swing, but like, obviously when odds kind of shift like that, it signals something. You can still get it at 22-1 on Caesars. It's +750, like +900-ish on DraftKings. So definitely shop around, get the best price there. But, I forget his name, Brad, you could update it, but like this one guy had a mock draft where he had Arizona taking Christian Gonzalez at 3. And so if Arizona doesn't trade out, I don't think Will Levis is like this lock to be the first defender taken. Like, I've heard Tyree Wilson has been loved by some people, even though he's kind of old. He has a lot of very intriguing traits. And not to mention, the Cardinals lost Byron Murphy in free agency and haven't really found like a true number 1 alpha guy to replace him. And Christian Gonzalez would be that guy for them. And so if they do decide to go corner, it would be Gonzalez. But sorry, Brad, what was his name again that did the mock draft?
I think you're talking about Anthony Meeksta, yeah. I think it is. But your friend Brad Spielberger also had Christian Gonzalez as the first defensive player taken in his mock draft this week. That was not an accident. I think it's very, very possible that I don't know if it's going to happen. I think it's very possible it happens.
Oh, I love that feeling of we're getting closer to the draft and you can feel the energy starting to percolate. We'll syndicate action, maybe just like a couple of days away, based on what I'm hearing. But I like that. I mean, you could also see the Cardinals trading out of 3, team trades up, pick quarterback, and they trade back. and go, okay, well, we'll take, Gonzalez then at that point. So
if Indy's still there at 4, that's what I did in my mock. If Indy's still there at 4, you already mentioned earlier, they add Samson Ebukam, they have Deo Dengbo, they have Kwity Paye, they have an interior defensive line. So like maybe they do take Jalen Carter, but you have DeForest Buckner, you have Grover Stewart, and they traded Stephon Gilmore away. They have maybe the worst outside corners in the NFL. So I think 3 and 4, and you could argue 5 at Seattle too. They Michael Jackson, they signed for a minimum contract. He was their starting outside corner last year opposite Tariq Woolen, literally on a minimum deal. Like I think 3, 4, 5. Look, they probably go defensive line, but if they take Christian Gonzalez, I would be the least bit surprised.
It's really interesting. Okay, cool. Well, I guess I got to spend more time in the Discord and figure my life out. This was the betting portion of the podcast. We are now going to transition gracefully into some important news that I did not know about. Maybe you all listening know about this, but very important update on Chiefsaholic. Brad, can you give us a little background for anyone that does not know or does not live on Twitter, who Chiefsaholic is and what the hell has happened with this guy?
I will. And I'll throw in, there is one more bet I want to get to, a golf bet to close off the pod. So perfect. Chiefsaholic is a gentleman that is a diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan, maybe the biggest Chiefs fan in the game. He goes to every game wearing a full-on like wolf costume. If you haven't seen it, Google it, go check it out. The story came out this year that there were a string of bank robberies across the country, and they started to realize that these robberies were happening in cities where the Chiefs were playing road games. And Chiefsaholic has now been linked to like a half dozen of these robberies where he was apparently going to these places, robbing banks, using that money to get he would take pictures of him sitting in like the 5th row of games, having a ball. Always, you never saw his face because he's in a full cost bottom. Anyway, the law finally caught up to our dear friend Chiefsaholic. He did get arrested. This is right before the Super Bowl. He actually tried to get out on bond by arguing that he had Patrick Mahomes MVP tickets and Chiefs Super Bowl tickets that he had to cash, which, I mean, let the man live. Let the man cash some tickets. So anyway, he did get out on bond. He was not allowed to go to the big game. He's been on house arrest. The most recent development, our friend Chiefsaholic is on the lam. He cut off his location tracking anklet, and he is, I assume, fleeing the country, or just doing something. So, yep, that's the current situation. We wish him the best. We hope he's safe and sound wherever he may be. And go Chiefs.
Has anyone seen Chiefsaholic and Eric Eager in the same place at the same time?
He looks about 6'3" in the pictures. That's all I'll say.
Is he a stretch 3 or a stretch 5, stretch 4? Yeah. Can he run the pick and pop like the good doctor can?
His elbow jumper is that people talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. So he might be coming through my neck of the woods on his way to Tijuana.
He certainly might be. If you see a gentleman in a full wolf costume and a Chiefs jersey, just, that'd be, hey, if we get an exclusive with Chiefsaholic on the pod, can you imagine?
Oh my God, that'd be incredible. I respect the guy that he had tried to argue his way out to cash betting tickets.
Well, I mean, look, if you are robbing banks and putting all of that on a ticket, I feel like, I don't know, it's a tough line to navigate. Is that, are they going to take the winnings, just the initial principal? What is yours and what is not? I think you could argue both directions, right?
Did he have a real job, or was he literally just living the dream?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think he was just living the dream because, I mean, look, traveling around the country, I guess games are on Sundays though. So you could have a normal 9 to 5 and then just throw on your wolf costume for the weekends.
Yeah.
He's a furry of sorts. Sports furry.
Made me think of a great movie, by the way, The Town, which I have not watched in a while, but I need to watch again.
Great film.
You took Arjun.
Yeah, Arjun's lost.
What did you even say? What did you even say?
Oh my God.
What cracked Arjun up so badly? What did you say?
Referring to him as a sports furry, I think. I'm not sure. I can't speak to it.
All right. Your golf bet.
Yep. All right. So the Masters is next weekend. I promise you on Sunday and next Wednesday I'll have a dozen bets, if not more, for each show. but just one to get the wet the beak a little bit, get the juices flowing. So here's the premise. Here's the thesis, whatever smart word Judah says. So of the last 11 Masters, 9 of the 11 winners have had a tee to green strokes gained of at least 1.7, kind of an arbitrary cutoff, but nevertheless, that is the stat. There's only about a handful, about a half dozen guys coming into this tournament as of this, so far this season that have had a tee to green strokes gain of 1.7 or better. One of those players is Cameron Young, a rookie of the year last year, a very, very good young player. We've talked about him on the show before. This is not why I like the bet, I promise. But anyway, I've joined datagolf.com. If you want to dive into betting golf or just knowing golf more, datagolf.com is I had an Arjun level 4-hour day on there over the weekend. So a couple other notes. The coolest thing I think they do is you can compare the similarity between courses. So Cameron Young came in second last year, the runner-up at the British Open at St. Andrews, historic course, great course. That is the 6th most similar course in the world to Augusta, Georgia. Very, very similar track. The last piece here, last week in the WGC Dell, which is a match play type tournament, a very cool tournament, he had a front 9 where he shot a 3 on every single hole. He had a 27 and literally was on fire. Played well the rest of the weekend, didn't win the entire thing, but did very, very well. And his approach game in particular, he set a record. He gained 4 strokes on approach shots alone in one round, which I think it's a record maybe for any period of time. So anyway, his game is just perfect for this course. He can drive. He's not Rory McIlroy, but he's got a solid driver. And accuracy off the tee is huge at the Masters. And then your approach shot, your second shot is huge. He's a solid putter. I will be honest. If he was a better putter, I think he would have already won a major at this point. But Augusta has, the greens are fast. But it's not the worst place to putt in the world. He is 33-1 on BetMGM. It's better. I like it too because it's 28-1 on DraftKings. And I want to say 25-1 on Caesars. So BetMGM 33-1, a little bit of value there. That is one early, to win bet that I'm placing now.
I like it. We talked about him before. I'm a fan of Cameron Young as well. And the best part, maybe not the best part about him, but he rocks an MLB logo on his hat. And I think also is apparel. It's amazing. And baseball starting up tomorrow. So great timing. But right, his game really fits perfectly because it's all about the approach. Putting at Augusta is really all about where do you put your putt. That's what it is. If you get on the wrong side of the hole or you can't get close enough to the hole, you are just screwed because the greens are so fast and you will get torched. And so that's, it's less sticky than driving strokes gained, more sticky than putting. Putting is play under pressure. It's just good luck trying to bet based on that. But the approach is what matters most at Augusta and really dictates the putting. So I like that one a lot. 33 is also kind of right in that range where there's a possibility for you to actually win the tournament. But you're still getting some super long odds. I'm going to go place that bet right now. I'm stoked.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So if people are curious too, I know it's kind of a random arbitrary cutoff, but the 7 players that are currently have a tee to green since the January 1st of 1.7 or better. Scotty Scheffler way out in front at 2.4, Rory McIlroy at 2.0. Cameron Young beat Rory McIlroy in the WGC last week. And then Victor Hovland, our guy, it's finished top 10 for us. Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, always fade Patrick Cantlay, and Tony Finau. That is the 7 players. And Young has longer odds than a lot of those people, which also is kind of why I like this bet as well.
What's Finau?
1.7. Oh, what's his odds? Yeah. Let's see.
Finau, also a guy that has traditionally played pretty decently at Augusta. Remember, he was in that final group with Tiger and Molinari when Tiger ended up winning. Famously, almost broke his ankle or did break his ankle and still finished, I think, top 5. So,
yep. So he's plus 2,200. So 22-1. Yeah, that was when the ankle shattering was when he played the par 3 course. That was a classic.
That's incredible. Arjun, how stoked are you for the Masters? Pumped?
I'm jumping with joy inside. You just can't see it on my face.
Yeah, there you go. Join the Printed Press Discord and give Arjun tons of advice on the Masters so that he can watch it. That was our show. We'll be back on Sunday night. Enjoy it. There's Formula One racing as well this week. That'll be something that is in the Discord as well. So if you want to talk Formula One, go jump in there. Have a great rest of your week. Love y'all. Peace.